This is a concerted effort. This is a concerted effort. Politics of personal destruction. Fuck you, John Podesta.
All right, well, you see where I'm coming from.
Okay. Yeah.
When I talk, that's because I'm interested in this ongoing whatever the hell they're doing.
What's in your closet, John Podesta? Big Podesta? Big Soros? Do you want us to play these games? Because we're playing to win.
Do you even know what you're protesting? How much are you getting paid? You will be the last to find out you've been duped. Enjoy yourself. You don't even know why you're here. You don't understand why you're here. You don't understand why you're here. How much are you getting paid?
We know very well
How much are you getting paid?
We're not getting paid.
paid.
We're not paying anybody. Nobody's getting paid. We are here.
Are you here to stop the hate?
Yes.
Are you a hateful man?
I'm certainly not.
You're hateful.
I'm a peaceful man.
What are you here for?
I am here to stop the hate that Glenn Beck is promulgating.
Like
in this
what?
country.
One thing that he said that's hateful. One thing. One thing that he said that's hateful. One, not 100. One.
I'm not going to fall into your trap.
One. It's a trap. Truth is a trap.
He should not be
Why
allowed
is he a coward?
to take
Why is he a
that from
coward?
us.
Why is he a coward? Why is he a coward? Why is he a coward? Your sign says back to the cowards. Why is he a coward?
Because
Why is he a coward?
he stands there on his.
I'm asking him. That's what he'll say.
He stands on in his TV show. It just, you know what?
Why is he a coward? Your sign has a very clear statement. Why? SEIU. Who here is from SEIU? Gee, do you remember when SEIU beat up Kenneth Gladney, the black man? How did you feel about that? How did you feel about that? That's hatred. That's hatred. That's hatred.
Ma'am, are you homophobic?
That's hatred. What has Beck lied about? I'm going to go sign by sign. What has he lied about? Name one lie.
Probably everything.
Probably everything. Good quote. There you go. Is there a single person here willing to back up what your sign has to say? Is there a single person whose sign is backed up by truth?
So are you, do you belong down with the Tea Party?
Indeed.
Oh, well, you're in the wrong place.
Oh my God, they threw eggs. They're throwing eggs. Lovely. They threw eggs. Isn't that nice? Yes. Okay, so the Harry Reid supporters throw eggs. Isn't that lovely? They're throwing eggs, but they're throwing eggs.
Get it throwing it!
Way to go. Way to go.
All right, man. I'm glad you approved.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thanks, man.
On the bus. Everybody on the bus. Let's go.
Get him out of here, or I'm going to jail today. Get him out of here.
Wait. What did you just say?
I said I love you, in spite of what you are. That's what I said.
You're going to go to jail today if I don't get out of here?
Everybody disagree with each other.
I haven't said anything provocative. I haven't said one thing provocative.
It's over. It's over.
I have not said. My mere standing here is causing people to intimate that they want to be violent against me. Just standing here.
CPAC has got to go.
Behave yourself. 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 You are freaks and animals. You're freaks and animals. Behave yourself. Behave yourself. Behave.
Racist, sexist, anti-gay, right-wing bigots, go away. Racist, sexist, anti-gay, right-wing bigots, go away. Racist, sexist, anti-gay, right-wing bigots, go away. Racist, sexist, anti-gay, right-wing bigots, go away.
Anti-gay yourself. Behave yourself. Learn to behave yourself. Stop raping people. Stop raping people. Stop raping. Stop raping people. Stop raping the people. You
Looking for you, you Occupy freaks with your glitter bombs. Bring it on! Bring on the glitter. Everything has changed. Everything has changed in the last few years. Conservatives used to take it, and we're not taking it anymore. Just today, as I was planning one of my stupid, silly, funny tricks, I didn't have to because I got word when I was doing a radio show today that 200 of us went out to the Occupy people to stand toe-to-toe with them to say we are here and we're proud to be conservative and we're not going to take your... I didn't say it. I'm on TV right now. I'm a respectful conservative and my mom is watching. It's over. It's over. Right now, my Twitter feed is already calling me a big fat homosexual. Hello, children at home. No, your dad's not gay. That's how the left rolls. Everybody asks me, why do you retweet? Hey, why do you do that? I can't tell you how many people I admire. And in fact, there's almost no one in the world who I respect more than Hugh Hewitt. And he took me aside the other day and he said, I don't think you should be doing that, Andrew. I don't think you should be doing that. Well, Professor Hewitt, on this issue, I disagree. Because they've held over our heads with contempt the false narrative of their innate tolerance. The least tolerant people you will ever meet in your entire lives. I know it. I live it every single day, and I retweet it to remind them that I know exactly who they are. This next race, over the next year, everybody asked me, by the way, to come here to speak about tolerance and unity. I'll get to that a little bit later.
Better place.
Hi, my name is Andrew Breitbart. I'm the publisher of a website by the name of Big Government. I swear to God, this is a chance occurrence that I'm here. I had no idea that you would be here. I have a question for you. You spoke about hatred fomenting in this country. You alluded to homophobia and racism, being an undercurrent of what you're seeing out there. I put out $100,000 to show any proof that the N-word was said 2 weeks ago, and I have gotten no responses on it. Regarding organized labor, which I've long supported in my life, I was at the Tea Party in Searchlight when I was just standing there, and organized labor started to attack the Tea Party bus. I have it on video. We have the names of the people who did the attacking, and that the person was working in coordination with the Democratic field director of Nevada, a guy by the name of Brian DiMarzio. We've outed the people. Kenneth Gladney was attacked. He had the N-word thrown at him. He was attacked by 2 SEIU thugs. Okay? My question is, well, this speaks to the narrative about hatred. Let me finish do you think that I don't have a valid point that I'm making here?
Get to it. I mean, I'm happy to.
Well, I'm telling you that the hatred that I have seen during this debate over the last year and a half, the incidents of violence have happened by organized labor getting caught on tape attacking Tea Party people, and Kenneth Gladney was called the N-word, okay? And so I would like for you to denounce that behavior and to help me investigate what happened with those 2 guys who were arrested. Will you help me look into the attack on the Tea Party bus by organized labor by the IBEW 357 and the SEIU in St. Louis?
Look, first of all, I wish I were able to be here tomorrow after you give your talk so I can ask.
I would love to have you.
I'll be in a different place. I wish I were able to do that. First of all, violence of any sort is not called for. But let me tell you what I witnessed personally when I went up to the Hill on the day of the healthcare vote. The Tea Party people were there. I watched them spit at people. I watched them call John Lewis the N-word.
So you heard that?
Yeah, we did. We did indeed. Wait a second. We did hear that. And if violence on any side, I don't care who does it, is wrong. Their anger. Their anger, just like if you walked past, when I walked past the Tea Party people, they were angry at me. They know what I stand for.
Evidence to show that these people have
Really?
expressed racism or homophobia.
Really?
You've created
I witnessed it.
You've created
I witnessed it. I saw it in person. That's real
There were
evidence.
10,000 video cameras.
You bet.
Good evening, Mr. Breitbart.
Thank you.
I have a question and a statement, if you don't mind.
Do the statement first. And
Well, my name is Andrea Ortega, and I'm a sophomore here at the university, and I'm very liberal. So I came here for one of my classes because we were encouraged to come with an open mind, and that is what I did come with. And a part of my statement is that you say that you're speaking from diversity, but then at the same time, you're making statements like multicultural diversity crap, and you make several statements that are very hypocritical of the position that you have, like black people referring to them as Uncle Toms, and referring to your
what was your reading comprehension score? That is what the left calls black conservatives if they disagree with the liberal orthodoxy.
My statement.
Yes. What's your question? I'm fine with it. I love this.
I just don't understand why you're saying that you are for diversity when you are making so many racial undertones about diversity and how racist you are being about racism. You're saying that...
This was the type of stuff why one must reject the post-structural. No offense, you are the definition of the indoctrination and you don't even understand what you're saying. God help us.
At least give her credit for bravery.
I do.
I am not going to accept that comment because I don't feel that I'm being brave. But I just want to say that if you want college students to understand your campaign, you're going to actually have to follow through with how open-minded you say you're being.
Where's the question? What's the question?
Well, I was going to ask something, but I feel that you're not going to listen to what I have to say. Well, my question was originally about the diversity stuff, and then you guys just started talking in the middle of what I was saying.
I understand the language, and you're implying that I'm racist. Okay? And that is what you are. That is going to be the sum total of your education as you go out there, and you're not going to be able to make anything. And that's what I graduated with my American Studies degree, the ability to judge other Americans as not being sufficiently tolerant because they didn't agree with the left's definition of tolerance. And I'm telling you this, is that you need to understand what multiculturalism is and what political correctness is. And it is cultural Marxism. And it is the translation of Marxist theory from, instead of the haves versus the have-nots. It didn't work in this country. So they created the oppressor versus the oppressed. And so they pitted people in the name of diversity, where they pit Hispanics against each other. Do you know what La Raza is? Do you know what the Reconquistador movement is? It is a racist movement in this country. What about the New Black Panthers, who are supported? They're racist. And the definition of racism is only white people can be racist because black and Hispanics can't be. That is malarkey. They have you thinking in terms of race. They have you thinking in terms of race. Everything is race. There was a world before this that was created. The buildings that were made here were made by people who didn't graduate their colleges obsessed with race. They learned through math. They learned through science how to improve. I'm answering. You had your statement. You had your statement, and I am answering it. You do not interrupt me. This educational system is going to fail you. You will not be able to invent a widget, and you certainly won't be able to build it in this country anymore. They have ruined. I am the ultimate example. I graduated from college believing exactly as you believe, and I walked in from the theoretical world into the real world and realized if I wanted to put rice on the table and pay for my rent, I better get out of this victimhood mentality, and I did. Listen to Hispanic conservatives. Listen to black conservatives. I'm the guy who has many people on the right saying, what are you doing on the Go Proud advisory board? If you can't be gay and conservative, then I'm not conservative. If you are, it doesn't even make sense to me. If you believe in fiscal conservatism, if you believe in personal responsibility, if you believe in a strong national defense, I want you on my team. That's where I'm coming from. And so you are brainwashed to think I am a racist, and you think I'm speaking in code terms. I don't think I could be any more explicit. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And I believe to the core of my being that this country will be destroyed by people like you who think you are doing good while you divide. You divide into separate different categories, and we pit against each other. There should be no Congressional Black Caucus. There should be no Latino caucus. Acorn was caught red-handed, and all they can do is the politics of personal destruction. No accountability. At the end of the day, 3 people expose this thing. They don't care about the rotten corpse of the great society being exposed. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care about these people. They don't care. It's disgusting.
Well, was there actual prostitution involved?
I don't know. Go find him. What?
So was there actual prostitution involved in what you exposed?
They posed as a pimp and a hooker. I don't understand what you're talking about. Why do you think that's a point? Why don't you care about Acorn?
No, I don't.
Why don't you care about Acorn?
So
why do you care about the nuances? Did you see the tapes? Are you insane? Are you so? Is your ideology so strong that when Acorn in almost every office except for one, are you so insane that they help them create 501c3s and say, for this underage, Mike Madden, for this underage prostitution ring where we're going to get these 14-year-old girls. It's called sex slavery. You're supposed to be liberal and care about this shit.
Right, but I mean...
You don't care.
Well, there's a difference between actual sex slavery and imaginary sex slavery, isn't there?
Okay, Acorn went into Acorn.
Sorry to bother you, but we actually need to break this up. We're trying to...
Acorn, let's move. I won't trip you. I won't trip you. Acorn went into a Jackson Hewitt office with NBC and did a fake video. You go around saying, Acorn, why do you pose under false pretenses with NBC to expose something when you're not actually trying to pursue a loan? You're trying to expose Jackson Hewitt as being a bad operation. You don't care when Salon Magazine goes undercover and tries to get people, get a disease. That's what Dan Savage did. How sick are you? How sick are you? That's what you did. Salon Magazine used a journalist to pose as a Christian to work for Gary Bauer. He was sick. His entire article was about putting snot on the telephone, on his pen. He insinuated that he stuck it in some pretty nasty places because he wanted to get Christians sick. And you're asking me about journalism? You've got to be kidding me, buddy. Okay. What's the difference?
Ready to rush to the front lines, and depending on your view, he's also been described as a conservative propagandist and a Tea Party loyalist. His new book is called Righteous Indignation, Excuse Me While I Save the World. Not a very modest title. In the book, you will find scarcely a word about one of his most infamous episodes involving Shirley Sherrod, the former USDA official fired after a video of her was posted on a Breitbart website. Sherrod is now suing Breitbart for accusing her of racism after showing, quote, a deceptively edited clip. And I'm delighted to say that Andrew Breitbart joins us now. Good afternoon, sir.
Well, I don't accept the premise.
But let me move forward. In your book, which I've read, you write, I'm not religious and I'm certainly no theologian, but if there's one thing in religion that speaks to me, it is the idea of absolute truth. We start by uncovering the truth and telling everyone about it. So those are your words.
Absolutely.
So let's start then with establishing a single important truth. Did you watch the entire video of Shirley Sherrod's speech before you posted what were 136 seconds of it online?
No.
Was that a responsible thing to do as a journalist who is concerned to excavate the truth?
I guarantee you that every single day MSNBC does that all the time. In fact, MSNBC was the place that cut off a black person's head and said that the Tea Party was racist because they were coming to tea parties with guns on them, and MSNBC cut the actual guy, and the guy was black.
Sure.
Is
Andrew,
that true? Is that truthful journalism?
I wasn't here, and I don't know the details.
I go, well, look.
Sure.
The thing is that.
Can I just go back to the point, though?
I'll go back to the point.
Just back to the point. The actual speech was 43 minutes long.
Right.
Was it remiss, on reflection, to post 136 seconds of that speech?
People put clips up all the time, and that clip explained something very important that even included her narrative of realizing it's not about black versus white, it's about rich versus poor. And do you know who came to my defense during that period of time? And I still to this day haven't thanked him for that. It was Chris Matthews, and he flummoxed Howard Dean and Salon's Joan Walsh, and included in the piece that everybody took selectively edited out of context. In the piece that went with 2 videos, I wrote, eventually her basic humanity informs her to help the white farmer. What happened is that other media took it and cut off that part and talked about it on TV.
Okay.
And so I ended up being a captive to the fact that other people selectively edited out my entire 1,400-word argument.
At the time that you posted the excerpt, the 136 seconds, you wrote, Shirley Sherrod had, quotes, racially discriminated against a white farmer.
Read the whole. Why are you selectively editing out the entire piece?
Can I just finish?
Sure.
And that the NAACP audience approved with murmurs of recognition and agreement. Quote. Now, we have you saying something similar on camera. Let's take a look.
I think that the clip as it exists proved precisely the news point that needed to be made.
What was that news point?
I had been battling the NAACP against the false allegation that the Tea Party is racist. The entire 14-word piece makes that argument. That I hit the target. The NAACP is affirmed in Shirley Sherrod's day one statement, where she said this is the NAACP's fault, and she said, and the NAACP apologized for the audience's reaction. It's significant that they apologized for the audience's reaction because the NAACP's head, Ben Jealous, for the week before attacked the Tea Party based upon the false premise that it yelled the N-word at Congressmen Carson and Lewis. I have 4 videos that show that it didn't happen, and NBC will not show those videos.
Andrew, let's just stay focused. You said in your original text in that video, Miss Sherrod, I'm quoting you, admits that she discriminates against people due to their race.
Precisely, yes.
That's what I...
In the piece, she did, and the audience reacted.
Please allow me to explain what I'm going to put to you. That was the diametric opposite truth of what she said. What she actually said was that she went on to go out of her way to assist, and her experience was an example of not discriminating on the basis of race. Why do you put Miss Sherrod admits that she discriminates against people due to their race? That's a deliberate misrepresentation of the truth.
I wrote in the piece that eventually her basic humanity informs her to help the white farmer.
Andrew,
and
I'm quoting your words.
Yes, and read the rest of the piece.
How can you claim in your book to be so committed to truth-telling?
I just told you the truth.
How can you do that
just told you the
when
truth.
you publish something...
You don't want to hear what I just told you.
I'm listening to you, sir.
I told you, eventually her basic humanity informed her to help the white farmer, and I kept in the part of the arc. The whole point was to show that the NAACP has no right to judge the Tea Party on racism if it keep its own house in order. That was the point of it. That was the point of the clip.
So if your work was so balanced, why was she forced to resign?
Who said that it was balanced?
That's what you're just arguing.
I'm not. I came with a point to show that the NAACP was in no position to judge the Tea Party. That is exactly what happened. And listen to me. Nobody went after President Obama.
Even
after,
Glenn, can I just put
yes.
this? Even Glenn Beck, who happily believes the notion that an Islamic caliphate is being constructed, in his words, from New Zealand to Nairobi, even he says that you deliberately misrepresented.
Well, he's lying, and the reason why he did.
He's right, isn't he?
He insinuated on the.
You misrepresented her.
Do you want me to answer the question?
Please do. Did you misrepresent her?
I'm answering. Listen to me. Glenn Beck said Andrew needs to apologize. He insinuated that he didn't touch the story. They said that the reason why the White House fired her was because they were worried that she was going to be, that this was going to be on the Glenn Beck show. Glenn Beck, in fact, ripped into Shirley Sherrod in his morning radio show. He was the one that diverted the attention away from the context, which was the NAACP angle, and made it about Shirley Sherrod. And
That's an interesting argument.
On the air, he cut out the part where she said that I kept in the video that said it's not about black versus white, it's about rich versus poor, which is her redemptive arc, which was in the piece that said eventually her humanity informed her to help the white farmer. Answer me why the President of the United States, when he was told that she helped the white farmer, did not rehire her. It took another day for that to happen. The reason why this happened, MSNBC told me. They said Andrew Breitbart was responsible for black farmers in the lawsuit.
Let's go back to your book.
You don't want to know the truth.
Of course I do, Andrew.
You don't.
Let's go back to the book. In the book, you say that one of the biggest influences on your intellectual and social development is a man you call Professor Rush Limbaugh. Is that right?
Yes, he was very influential.
Okay. Now, you know that Mr. Limbaugh quite recently did a, some would call humorous, others would say offensive impersonation of the Prime Minister of China. You also have asked Kevin Pezzi to write for BigGovernment.com.
Oh my gosh, you really are getting your Media Matters talking points.
Can I just go with you to this?
Once I found out about who Kevin Pezzi was, he submitted a piece.
Can I just, Andrew,
he submitted a piece. The second we found out about him, we got rid of him.
Allow me to finish. Mr. Pezzi, as you know, likes to use racist epithets like Japs and Chinks. He also maintains that African Americans should be grateful for being subjugated.
That's deplorable. It's deplorable. It's deplorable. It's deplorable, Martin. Why are you doing guilt by association?
Because here's the point I'm trying to make.
You're selectively editing out the fact that I got rid of him once I found out about that. I had never met him before, and he submitted an article, and you are selectively editing history right now.
Allow me to take you back to what I was just saying. You take 136 seconds and post it. You then employ an individual who takes views like that, or use an individual who has views.
He was a blogger.
Sorry,
there are thousands of people.
You use his views, and now you just said you fired him. You just said
I didn't fire him.
That's what you just said.
He was a blogger who posted something at my site. Once I found out what this guy was about, I got rid of him immediately, and I took the piece off of the site. You want to do guilt by association?
No, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to follow the narrative of your own book, and what I'm saying is we have.
What have I
Shirley
not told
Sherrod,
the truth about? What have I not told the truth about?
We've had Rush Limbaugh. Let me just get.
What have I not told the truth about? What have I not told the truth about? You started this off.
I want to ask you a question.
What have I not told the truth about?
Let me ask you a question. This week, Obama dressed and in a family of apes.
Are you asking me about this? What do I have to do with it?
I want to ask you, what do you think of that image?
It's deplorable. It's deplorable. It's reprehensible, and you're trying to insinuate that I'm a racist here, which is what MSNBC does to conservatives every single day. This entire context of this conversation is what the NAACP and what the Democratic Party has been doing to the Tea Party for the last year.
I haven't spoken to anyone.
The entire context of this, the subtext of this interview.
Why didn't you, when you published Shirley Sherrod's comments, the 136 seconds, and your voluminous article, as you rightly point out, why didn't you stand up and defend her and say, actually, she's not a racist? Why did you write things like she's racially discriminated against a white farmer?
Because the rest of the video showed different things that were that illuminated something that was not as black and white as you would like.
We use some bits of the information and we don't use others.
No, she said
that's what we do.
Why don't you hold her accountable for saying that I wanted to bring black people back to slavery? She, on day one, said this was the NAACP's fault. A week later, she said, this has nothing to do with the NAACP. This is about Andrew Breitbart. Somebody told her, we need to target Andrew Breitbart at this point. She, on day one, the NAACP understood perfectly well what the context of this video was, and I successfully stopped their waging the campaign that MSNBC was party to try to falsely frame the the Tea Party as racist.
I wasn't working here.
I'm not talking about MSNBC.
Let me move on to the book. I'm trying to focus on your book. I'm pulling out material from your book. In the book, you talk about bloggers, citizen journalists, who have implied that the president's autobiography, Dreams from My Father, was written by, quote, I'm quoting, the domestic terrorist Bill Ayers.
Yes, I think that's first of all,
is there any evidence? Is there any evidence to support that?
The Jack Cashel articles on that are very compelling. It's clearly a
what is the evidence?
It's clearly a theory.
What is the evidence?
And I said that I believe it. And
what
this
is
is
the
an opinion.
evidence?
You're not going to shut down dissent in this country. I believe it to the core of my being.
I'm asking you to evidence the fact
Read the Jack Cashel article. I believe that it's a compelling argument. It's a very complex argument, but I would say the most.
Mr. Ayers has denied doing this.
You know, he's also said that he has.
But he's denied.
But he's also said that he has.
Ghostwriting the autobiography.
But he also has said that he has. He has also said that he has.
Here we have a problem, you see, because
I'm allowed to have this opinion.
Shirley Sherrod, we have Rush, we have you quoting people suggesting that they're ghostwriters. Do you see how
there's nothing wrong with having? If you've read through my entire book, you didn't read my book. Media Matters read it for you. Every single thing.
I've marked it up. I've read the whole thing.
Every single point that you've offered is straight out of George Soros's funded and John Podesta's led Media Matters. You are playing the role of a dupe of John Podesta and Eric Bullard and Media Matters. Every time I appear on MSNBC, or a lot of times, there's Eric Bullard from Media Matters to be right there. Those are talking points straight out of Media Matters.
You and I are having a conversation about truth.
We are.
And
Media Matters is over there. George Soros is sitting over there, and Bill Ayers is sitting over here.
Well,
you have agenda-driven journalism. I support it. I support it. I support MSNBC. I support Keith Olbermann when he was fined by MSNBC, because the implication that he was giving money was somehow ethically wrong when everybody knows where he comes from. Everybody knows where you're coming from. I believe in a back and forth.
Andrew. Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. The prescription.
And Kevin, well, how often? And I know because I know Kevin. Okay, get out of my face. What's wrong, man? Get out of my face. Get out of my face. Get out of my face. I'm answering right now. I'll answer right now. Because you fell flat on your face. You fell flat on your face with this false accusation, and you were busted. No, I was not busted. Since when does the are you accusing the Georgetown Law Center of holding a white... Georgetown Law Center didn't know. Georgetown Law Center did not know, but the leadership did. What are you talking about? They would never allow for white supremacist confab with a black man as a speaker. They didn't know. What? And Kevin Martin did not know what he was getting himself into. How do I know? Because I talked to him. You're losing. And you sounded like an ass. Get out of here, buddy. Get out of here. Talk to you later. Peace. Retractions at salon.com. But no retractions from me. You never went after me, and I was the one to put the story out. And you lost. You didn't go after me, son. You lost. Because you couldn't come. Because you're not accountable. You couldn't come at me. You're not accountable. You could not come at me, chump. You're not accountable. And I'm gonna see you again. And by the way, why are you the only one that posted that Jared Taylor, the white supremacist, that got his conference? Are you accusing me of being a white supremacist? I'm accusing you of being a racist. Yes, I am. Okay, good. Yes, have a nice day, buddy. Will somebody please take this guy out of here, you punk?
And I went to Washington, D.C. well before the Tea Party happened, and I started to meet with Republican leaders. in large meeting rooms, and I told them about the burden of the American people, the patriots in Hollywood, and they exist in large numbers. And if you really want to win in this country, you're going to have to fight the culture war. And you know what these people said to me, almost to a person? How can you get them to raise money for me? How can you get them to put their credibility and their neck on the line for me to raise an extra $20,000? I said, I don't think you understand that if they put $500 in your account, the Hollywood Reporter and Variety and the Los Angeles Times are going to look through it, and they're going to put them in the paper and say, hey, guess who is for Sarah Palin? Guess who's for this person? And they'd use Alinsky tactics to destroy you. It's plausible deniability, McCarthyism. And the Tea Party, to me, started here. They sensed that America, they were trying to send a message to figure out a way to tell America, don't make the bargain with the false mantra of hope and change. Because at the end of the day, what you're going to be visited by is thuggery. And what have we been witnessed over the last year and a half? I was in Chicago last week, and this is going to encapsulate the last year and a half. And I got out of a car, and I see 200 people chanting, "Stop the hate. Stop the hate. Stop the hate." Chants. Why do we not have chants? Why don't we have chants? Because we don't meet at a union hall on Monday and practice our chants. I walked up to them and I said, I know you guys. You're the SCIU. You're the guys that called Kenneth Gladney at the Russ Carnahan Town Hall an N-word and beat the crap out of him, and the Democratic machine suppressed a prosecution on a hate crime. I go, I know who you are. You're the haters. And so I started to go sign by sign by sign. I said, you don't even know why you're here. You're a herd. You're not an individual. This is a country of individuals, and you're a mass, and you want to be led. And I walked up. I said, your sign says Glenn Beck equals lies. Name one lie. Not 50, not 100. Name one lie that Glenn Beck has told. Badur, 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 badur. The organizer of this group, the social justice minister, love that term, said, I'm not going to fall into that trap. Okay, it was a truth trap. One example of a lie. You're here, you drove in city school buses, and you couldn't come up with one lie of Glenn Beck. Then I went to the next person. The person said, probably many. And then the next person, I said, Glenn Beck's a coward. Why is he a coward? Ba-dee, 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 ba-dee. You guys are just a bunch of losers. Are going to be the last to realize that you're the ultimate dupes, and you're the ones who are going to suffer because you're going to lose your jobs, because people are going to leave your state to go where government is not oppressing everybody. They don't even understand it. So their leaders, there's not a leader here. Everybody here came here on their own volition. They got organized by the SCIU. And what happened at that event? It's called astroturfing. It's the opposite of grassroots, which is what this is. And what happened? As their organizers said, get away from him. He's trying to provoke you. One person against 350, and they started to walk away. And as they started to walk away, one lady says, as they're chanting, stop the hate, she says, I think he's gay. And I'm like, oh, this is fun. I love the SCIU. I love the organized left because they're not individuals. We have to start confronting them. It's not just the SCIU, it's the mainstream media. They're just as predictable, and we are exposing them every step of the way. I said, hey, I'm at an anti-hate rally and you just called me gay. That's lovely. Why did you call me gay? Another guy says, because of the way you talk. I go, we've got another winner. And so they go away, they get into their buses, and they drove away. We can beat these people. We can beat these people. They're thugs.
Because the mainstream media is not going to like what you have to say. And so I volunteered myself, and on day one, I had to contend with the fact that you guys were called teabaggers, and I had to deal with the fact that an unfortunately named sister by the name of Contessa Brewer on MSNBC, before you even spoke, told you what your grievances were to the country in our Dissent is Patriotic presidency.
this person took a photo and cut off the head of a black man and asked, is the Tea Party Nation, are the people who are protesting Barack Obama racist? And the person was black. The person was black. She still has a job. MSNBC is still on the air. Janine Garofalo says, racist, racist, racist. This is what they do, my friends. This is what they do. It's evil. Now listen to me. Listen to me. There's irony here. There's irony here, okay? Listen to me. There's irony here. I was a dumb liberal when I was in college. I graduated. And guess what? I watched the Clarence Thomas hearings waiting for the media to take him down because the Democratic Party told me that he was the worst human being in the history of the world. I said, okay, let's take him down because he's a serial sexual harasser. And I watched the media and the Democratic Party ruin that man's life. He did nothing wrong. They just knew he had the wrong politics. The irony is he's an originalist. He's the one who has the values that most resemble this group of people, and they had to take him down. And guess what they did to me, my friends? They activated me. That was it. I go, I'm a conservative. I want to be on that man's team. And the stoic way he sat there, I was like, this is a hero. This is an American hero living the American dream. God bless Judge Clarence Thomas. You deserve that.
I bet you my week was weirder than your week. You have no idea. The adrenaline that was coursing through my veins when I went up to New York City and the weird, weird cinematic experience that I had. I don't even know. I started the morning intentionally in North Carolina where I gave a speech. And I talked at that speech to a policy group of people, a bunch of wonks and political types, and I kind of gave them my standard shtick on why I do what I do. And I mean this. I live on the National Cemetery in West Los Angeles with the largest frontage of the part of the property where the bodies are buried of people who died in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've lived there since the year 2000, and we remodeled our house, whereas the last people that lived there hid the fact that that was the backyard, and we created, floor to ceiling windows, so that's all you can see. And so every weekend I see families, many people, often parents who are just a bit older than I am, visiting their loved ones who died within the last 5 or 6 years. And so I've always had a mentality in what I do post 9/11 that if those guys are going to go out there, guys in the military who are still in Iraq and Afghanistan, I'm going to treat what I do for a living with the same zeal and the same commitment. And so a lot of people in the media don't like my language, they don't like my attitude, they don't like that they can't put me into a category, but at the end of the day I'm not going to step away from the definition that I consider myself a warrior, and I really do believe that what I call in the book the Democrat media complex, which is the natural alliance of the Democratic Party, liberal interest groups, and the mainstream media, is something that needs to be taken down. And so I made that speech, and a hulking, larger-than-life, Superman-like guy comes up to me afterwards, all by myself, and says, I want to thank you for what you do. Don't, for a minute, know that there aren't people out there that don't appreciate what you do. And it was Tommy Franks. And because I told that speech, I didn't know that Tommy Franks, the General Tommy Franks was in the audience, and I'm giving him my heartfelt speech about my backyard and why I do what I do. And I was like, whoa! And that started my Monday. And so I got on the plane to New York with adrenaline already going through my veins because I wanted to call up all my friends and say, guess who I talked to? And guess who I took a picture with in North Carolina, the Tommy Franks. It was beyond invigorating. And so on Sunday night, the night before, we had devised our strategy. Look, you don't need to devise strategies when you're the New York Times, because you're the New York Times and you can just drop the story. And if you're Congressman Boehner or Cantor, you know that your days and nights are numbered if the New York Times drops it. But when you're a little lowly blogger like me, and you have the mainstream media and the left blogosphere and Media Matters and Salon and the Huffington Post and the Daily Kos all out there saying when you report a story as what happened last week, go out and destroy Breitbart. That's what they said. There was a rallying cry at the Daily Kos, go out and destroy Breitbart. It wasn't let's figure out the facts and try and debunk this story. It's let's destroy Breitbart. Ask Marcos Malitzis, who's on Meet the Press, why he's on Meet the Press, when at his website, his first order when seeing this story is go destroy Breitbart. And what did they do? They devised a strategy to proclaim that I was the hacker behind the illicit tweet. And so when I use war metaphor, it's because it is a media warfare that we are involved in. And when the mainstream media tries to pretend that it doesn't exist and that they haven't taken their sides, they flummox me, and that's the nicest words I can use to describe that, because they are what they are. It's like Spielberg, Katzenberg, and Geffen at DreamWorks who say, what liberal bias in Hollywood? Okay, you flummox me too, fellas.
The Liberal Grows Up, segment 1. You describe in Righteous Indignation a privileged upbringing in Southern California. Exclusive schools, very comfortable circumstances. Your parents weren't particularly political, but they were more or less conservative. And then this, I'm quoting from the book. Through some form of osmosis, I considered myself a liberal. How come?
My parents didn't fight for to maintain what it was they were teaching me through their deeds and their acts. They are a very silent generation. I grew up around with friends who had younger baby boomer parents, and they were very forthright in their politics. They would go to their rock concerts. They'd go to their Rock for Kampuchea. They'd fly to Philadelphia for Live Aid. And I remember my mother would watch Lawrence Welk on Saturday nights. The juxtaposition of...
That's not a hard choice. You want where the action was.
It was, and so as much as I loved my parents, the flow towards my friends and their parents' way of life and way of thinking was the most natural thing in the world.
Okay.
I loved my parents, but rejecting their orthodoxy was simple.
Once again, from Righteous Indignation, a turning point. You're in New Orleans, you're studying at Tulane, you're sitting down for a math exam, quote, and you're not doing well. I started to consider that maybe years of skating by, recklessly expecting everything to work out, had been exactly the wrong approach to derivatives. Nice sentence, by the way. Apparently, I realized sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes you do have to make it work out, which means that values do matter, close quote. Andrew, you're raised in a conservative family and come out a liberal. You go to what you call, I don't have experience of Tulane, but I have no reason to doubt you.
It's any humanities department USA, and I hate to do this to Tulane because I'd love to be invited back there to speak to the students, to tell them about an alternative approach.
I guarantee it lies in your future at some point. Somebody will fund a trip to Tulane. But it's a liberal, it's an American university of its time, and you come out of that a conservative. How did this happen?
Well,
you are swimming against
I
was
an American Studies major, and I really did think that when I chose that, that it would be reading about the Constitution, the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, Mark Twain, and sort of a benign approach towards the American experience.
And I didn't realize this until afterwards, because I can say this with absolute authority. Had I not graduated, had I not been given my diploma, it would have only been me to blame. When in New Orleans, do as the New Orleanians, I really did partake in the culture down there, and I can't believe I did graduate. But there was a point where
Mardi Gras every night for Andrew Breitbart.
It was, and it was as depressing as it was ecstatic and fun. It was just, it was a prison of decadence, and it was 4 years of nonstop where people would come and visit me from my former life in Los Angeles, and they'd leave saying it was the best time of their lives. And as they'd get on the plane to depart the Bacchanalia, I would whisper under my breath, "Please take me with you," because it was Groundhog Day. It was every single. It was the It was the Monday nights. It was the Monday nights when people would say, "Do you want to go out?" And I said, "Nah, I think I'm going to stay in and study." And then 15 minutes later, I'd go out and I'd meet them. So I really didn't. I didn't dedicate myself to academia, and it was only after I graduated when I got a letter or an email, I don't remember the exact year, I think it was around 1994, asking me to assess my degree. You know, it was
self-assessment,
an assessment of it, and I started to look through the books, wondering what was that. What was that education? And what I remember was, to synthesize it, I've watched C-SPAN my entire life, and I remember I've watched Noam Chomsky talk in this strange jargon that is not accessible to the average person. And I remember thinking to myself, there was a period there in my American Studies class where I was hearing the word deconstruction and semiotics a bit too many times. And I'm like, what's going on here? What is this language? What are they trying to do? And I started to analyze the courses that I took, and I realized that it was cultural Marxist theory. I'm like, this is kind of strange. I thought that this was supposed to be American studies, not German, Italian, nihilistic theory.
So in a way, it's just as well that you were debauched all 4 years.
That's the whole point of that chapter, is that I think alcohol saved me.
You go.
I want to get to the census. One other point your critics make is they say that you're animated by resentment over race. They point out that you've attended at least one conference where white nationalist literature and speaker were promoted. And they point to a time when in college at Rutgers where you were actually kicked out of a dorm for using racist slurs.
I mean, that's outrageous. I mean, that's been completely disproven on the internet. I'm not even going to address that.
That has been absolutely debunked. That was a Max Blumenthal hit piece at Salon where they had to issue retractions. And so the type of journalism, this is the type of journalism that we do, is to counter the false narratives and the slurs that happen like that from political operatives like Max Blumenthal, like Joan Walsh at Salon, who used journalism journalism as a platform to slur James O'Keefe.
When you take
true.
On corruption,
this is your diary.
When you stand up
that points it out
to power, when you stand up to institutions, people are going to come after you. They're going to use character assassinations. Well, we're going to rise above that. This is not about me. I'm creating a movement of investigative journalists across the country. And they're not going to stop us with character assassination and all this innuendo.
But you don't deny that this was your own diary that pointed this out.
And they're not going to be able to stop us.
You don't deny that.
No, what I'm saying is when you stand up to powerful individuals, they're going to try to destroy you and smear you. But this is not about me. This is about the truth. And they can't stop us with that type of stuff.
And as you know, and you did, and I have to give you credit for this, on Acorn you did expose people doing things they shouldn't do, although Jerry Brown points out that you didn't show any illegality by Acorn. What is
it illegal to help set up a prostitution ring in every single office? If that isn't illegal, then maybe perhaps we should create some not helping. They get federal money. Al Franken voted against Acorn. The census was delinked by the White House by way of the Treasury Department and as part of the executive office. What he exposed caused a lot of damage. And they have political enemies that want to send a message to citizen journalists around the world not to join the James O'Keefe bandwagon.
I was one of the few, if not the only journalist who actually asked President Obama about the Acorn case. So I hold no brief.
Why was that? It was a huge story.
I hold no brief for Acorn.
Why were so journalists not interested in that story? That's why we do what we do, because the media is hesitant to cover certain narratives that don't fit with the political orientation of the press.
I did cover it. I did ask the question. So I hold no brief for Acorn.
It doesn't even matter. Why does it matter? So why would are you saying that Georgetown Law Center, with all the white supremacist content, you're ridiculous. You are a joke. You are a despicable human being. You're the lowest life form that I've ever seen. Your entire job is trying to destroy people with the Linsky tactics. Explain to me what your political philosophy is that you have other than this nihilism. Not particularly. You've already said it. You tried to destroy it. I don't care. Yes, absolutely. I could go for years. You're disgusting. I cannot believe that you're fighting your father's battles. I can't believe what you did to Christopher Hitchens. You have been programmed by some ungodly creature to be this character of hatred. Accusing a person of racism is the worst thing that you can do in this country. I'm not at all. He's a despicable. Of course I'm not. No, it isn't. No, you. What do you mean? What are you talking about?
No, I mean, this is an event.
This is an event. Kevin Martin was there debating at the Georgetown Law Center. You're this smearing. Wait. Make your case. Make your case. This isn't a case. This is guilt by association, you punk. Because you're a punk. You destroy people. Because you try and destroy people's lives through innuendo. Innuendo. We're done with you.
James O'Keefe a racist? Are you saying you didn't call James
Innuendo. Innuendo in order to destroy people's lives. You're the most despicable life form I've ever seen.
52% of those who support the Tea Party say that too much has been made of the problems facing black people in America, compared with 28% of the general
Why are you
public.
going along with the mainstream media? Why are you going along with the administration's narrative to try and make this about race when there's no evidence to suggest
That's a 2-to-1
that
difference
this
in
movement,
opinion.
Racism has nothing to do with the Tea Party movement, so the fact that you're trying to manufacture it is offensive to me.
I'm just asking about a data point.
What did I just tell you about the data points that were crafted during the Monica Lewinsky scandal? When they try and troll and try and find that place that they can stoke and prod to try and create something that doesn't exist from something.
So you don't think it's accurate? You don't think it's accurate that 52% of the people who support the Tea Party think that too much has been made of the problems of black people?
Let's ask the same questions of the people who support the bill. If you're going to tell me that the range, no, let's talk about the people that support the public, not general public that support the actual bill. The AFL-CIO, the SEIU, the people who are going to benefit from this. Let's interview them. Are you telling me the AFL-CIO are a bunch of pristine people who don't have a racial thought one way or the other? This is manufactured. This is why the American people, a great amount polling. This is why so many people can't stand the mainstream media, and why there's a hardcore animosity towards the media that is pretty much commensurate or equivalent to the animosity towards Congress.
I'm here coincidentally. I just arrived at LaGuardia because of media requests, and as I got into my hotel, I'm Andrew Breitbart, by the way. We reported this at Big Government and Big Journalism, and I'm here coincidentally. I did not know that they were going to be announcing this, so I'm just staying at a hotel about 3 blocks away, so I just decided to come by and see what he had to say.
So how positive are you that what you reported is back up?
Specifically, I mean, we're reporting a lot of things here, such as at first, I think we were vindicated at first after a 3-day frenzy of trying to attack my journalism, my websites on the nature of the initial hack story. Everything that we reported was true in that story. We didn't get into conjecture. We didn't name the girl, yet Salon.com and Joan Walsh I think, played the role that Congressman Weiner wanted, was to try and attack the messenger, and she falsely claimed that I had named the girl in Seattle. That wasn't true. And also said that I had savaged the girl in Seattle. In fact, that was Gawker. Once it was found that it was Gawker and not me, there's no apology from Salon.com. This was all an attempt. The strategy in the first weekend was to try and say if we attack Breitbart, then by the time we get to Tuesday, it will no longer be there. Yeah, that's strange to me as well. I don't have any answers to it. I'm here also to get some answers as well. This is a coincidence that we'll be able to be as straight and honest with you as humanly possible. I was there on Friday night at around 7 or 7:30 with my wife when I looked at my iPad and I saw that somebody retweeted something from his account. I clicked on it, I looked at the image, and maybe I'm dense or something, but it took me about 14, 15 seconds to go, what could this possibly be? And I was like, oh, I know exactly what that is. And what happened is we realized that we had a tip in our tip box that had come previously, that came on May 20th, where a person representing this woman said that they had some incriminating photos. And so it was on that evening that I tried to contact that tipster. I was able to contact that person's point person on Saturday. The person was out of range because of Memorial Day weekend. We weren't able to talk until Tuesday. We weren't able to agree upon anything. And then on Friday, the woman reached out to me. This last Friday. I have yet to meet her. And this has been independently corroborated, the content that was put on the website by a major news bureau.
So the release of the photos today is that...
Here, this, sir.
So the release of the photos today is just in an effort to clear your own name and clear...
Well, no, this is an ongoing story. This is a compelling story, but I certainly did not like that he doubled down on this is about Breitbart problem. I mean, if he's going to come up here and take some form of culpability here, he was party to a campaign for 72 hours that weekend to allow for the left-wing blogosphere, including the Daily Cost, to accuse me of being the hacker. Are there any repercussions for journalism on the left when they falsely claim that I'm the hacker? Marcos Melitzis of the Daily Cost will not apologize. In fact, he admitted that he named the girls, the underage girls, because they had the wrong politics. At what point does Meet the Press say we're no longer going to allow Marcos Melitzis on the air? Why is there no accountability for an entire weekend of false reporting that was based upon what I believe was Congressman Weiner's strategy to blame the messenger? Carrie Pickett. I'm not going to get into a graphic description, but to suffice to say it's of an X-rated nature. I'm not here to get into how Congressman Weiner should respond to this. My biggest I'll talk about this later for another time. I'm here to answer some of the basic questions. Everything we've reported about this story has been true.
Mr. Breitbart, why did you put this on the web in the first place? What were you trying to achieve?
Well, it's clearly a news story. Why are you trying to challenge a blatant news story? Okay, we received a tweet that came from his official Twitter page, sent out to a woman in Seattle. We did not go with the story until after we saw that the congressman took down all of his photos, and the woman in Seattle took down her Facebook account and her Twitter account, and even worse, he went to his Twitter page to claim that he was hacked. We only wrote the story after a sitting congressman claimed that his computer system had been invaded by a hacker. If this isn't, how
Is this revenge for Tristan?
how is it revenge? The story played itself out in real time. There was zero premeditation involved in this. This is a legitimate story, and this is a continual attempt to blame the messenger. And that's what this press conference is. There's at least one more. There's at least one more photo.
How long have you had it?
No, I don't. I'm not sitting back with a cache. This process happened absolutely organically as it relates to my motivations and my website's motivations.
Do you think Weiner should resign?
I don't have an opinion on that. That's up for him to decide and his constituency and the Democratic leadership.
To those who say that your journalism here is suspect.
What?
To those who accuse you that your journalism is somehow suspect here, what do you tell those folks?
Oh, well, the Acorn story is interesting because everybody says selectively edited, selectively edited, selectively edited. And when Hannah and James came to me, I said that the mainstream media, they didn't come to me because I have a big satellite van out in front. I had a basement in Los Angeles. Why did they come to me? They knew that the mainstream media wouldn't want to see a story about President Obama's vaunted community organizing group behaving in such a nefarious fashion. They came to me because I had to figure out a way to go around the president's protectors in the mainstream media, and I did. But I told them, you're going to be held to a different standard. And James put his edited videos, okay? He truncated time just like every person in this room does. But I said what we're going to do is we're going to put the full transcripts and the full audio of these visits so that nobody suspects that you cut these things up to put words into their mouths. I have no intention at this point to release that photo. I'm not waiting for anything. I want to hear the truth. I want to hear the truth from Congressman Weiner. Quite frankly, I'd like an apology for him being complicit in a blame the messenger strategy. That was clear what happened. 72 hours in Palm Springs with your family is excruciating when you are being challenged. Andrew, why aren't you on vacation? Why won't you get off the phone? Because I'm being accused of being the hacker against a congressman. He said nothing. He allowed for that to go. His minions perpetuated that false, malicious meme, and then he went on CNN to attack me. I feel he was complicit. What? Yeah, you're Marsha, aren't you? You can talk. The girl story, I believe, will be on World News Tonight, and I think she'll be available. She can talk to you more specifically about the ways with which she received these photos. She's the one who is attesting to the fact that it came from Congressman Weiner. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of this congressman's body at this, and he's in very good shape. And it appears to be his body. I know.
Sir, with all due respect, why should we believe your story?
Okay, everything that I've said so far has come to be true. I'd like to hear one. The media says Breitbart lies, Breitbart lies, Breitbart lies, Breitbart lies. Give me one example of a provable lie. One. One. Journalists, one. Put your reputation on the line here. One provable lie.
Then why won't you release the photo?
Do you know what I would be accused of if I released this photo? I'm doing this to save his family, okay? And if this guy wants to start fighting with me again, I have this photo. But I absolutely do. I'm not doing this for nefarious purposes. I'd like an apology from him for allowing for his political protectors, this was his strategy, was to blame me for hacking. Oh, don't worry. Breitbart's our regular whipping boy. We can accuse him of anything, and the press will not hold those journalists to account no matter what they say. And so I'm here for some vindication.
Welcome back to the show. You know, there was a tuberculosis outbreak in Occupy Atlanta. That's not the news you're going to find in the consensus media, though. They're still cheering on these folks. Well, other than the Sun News Network here in Canada, the best place to go to find out what's going on in the Occupy movement is Andrew Breitbart, and he joins us now from Los Angeles. Andrew, thanks a million. You're our real source because no one else is reporting what's really going on.
It's strange because there's so much going on, not just across the United States, but up in Canada as well and around the world. The Occupy movement, while it may not be rich in numbers, it certainly has a foothold around many hotbed leftist areas where there are a handful to hundreds of people who want to make a major statement.
Well, you know, it's let's look at something that I found fascinating, which is who are the people who actually show up? They're not minorities. They're not the poor. There was a survey done of hundreds of people who show up, and here's the stats. 81% of them are white, which is whiter than, you know, the general population of the United States. They're mainly male, of course, 61%. I mean, usually protest movements that turn violent are. You know, they're sort of middle-aged. It's not really young folks. You know, the vast majority of them are over 25. 61% of them have college, 30% grad school. I mean, these are the elites in terms of their educational opportunities. Only 12.3% unemployed, half them full-time jobs, 20% part-time, and which is just a touch more than the U.S. average. And surprisingly, fairly well-to-do. I mean, 30% make over 50 grand a year. So these are not the true poor. They're certainly not minorities. They're certainly not people who didn't have opportunities in life. It won't surprise you to know that there are very few Republicans. So that's the breakdown. Andrew, why has the media portrayed these as a snapshot of the real America when, in fact, it's basically the Democratic Party activists slumming it for a weekend in tents?
Well, I just want to point out that Harvard University just started its Occupy Harvard. So that speaks to the core demographic of the Tea Party, of the Occupy movement. It is the counter Tea Party, and that's why I think it's significant that we point these things out, because the left has wanted to have a counter Tea Party. It has attacked the Tea Party on racialist grounds, on politically correct grounds, trying to frame it as inherently racist because its majority core happens to be white. So one of the reasons why we're trying to point out that the Occupy movement is wider than the Tea Party movement. It's more affluent than the Tea Party movement, and it actually has a lot more people in the college ranks. And I think that one of the reasons why you have so many graduate students and college students involved with this and recent grads is because these people have graduated into an economy in which their post-structural studies degree has absolutely no worth whatsoever. You know, having gender studies degrees, having African studies degrees, American studies degrees, this does not have you prepared to enter the real world with any skill set whatsoever. And these people are starting to realize that college was overly expensive. They owe hundreds of thousands of dollars to Sallie Mae and other entities that basically told them, hey, look, if you take out these loans for these $60,000 a year, nothing degrees, you're going to enter into an economy with something that's worthwhile. They have crap.
The most well-known civil rights organization in American history passed a resolution earlier this evening that condemns elements of the Tea Party movement. Now, the resolution introduced at the NAACP National Convention in Kansas City accuses Tea Party members of exhibiting, quote, explicitly racist behavior and trying to, quote, push our country back to the pre-civil rights era. Now, the document also claims that Tea Party members hurled racial epithets at African-American members of Congress. Now, those incidents have gone unsubstantiated, but that did not stop the NAACP from passing its resolution just a short time ago. Joining me now with reaction, Andrew Breitbart from Breitbart.com, who has offered $100,000 to anyone with video evidence showing abuses by Tea Party members. And here in studio from the New York Civil Rights Coalition, Mike Myers is with us. All right. Andrew, let's start with you, because these accusations are not substantiated. The one that they keep saying, I'm going to give 4 different angles of the accusation that a member of Congress, Congressman Carson, that racial epithets were used against him. We'll put it up on the screen. And we're doing this, again, there was a lot of media there, so we decided to go from 4 separate different angles. Now, number one, you can see a lot of people have recording devices. You offered $100 grand. Has anyone ever offered the evidence?
No, they didn't offer the evidence, and that's all I could do at the very beginning. But it took a few weeks to compile evidence of the videos of the exact area where Congressman Carson said that he walked down and heard the N-word 15 times by 15 different people, and he said that the people started to crowd around them like he thought that they were going to throw rocks at them. We can show you these videos where it clearly did not happen that way, and we see Congressman John Shadegg walking a beat behind them with a smile on their face, and you don't hear anything. You hear kill the bill, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I mean, look, this is the NAACP here. Explicitly racist behavior. I think one of the worst things you can call somebody is a racist.
The NAACP is a 101-year-old organization. It is showing signs of Alzheimer's. It is a kind of brain death. Anybody white who disagrees with the NAACP is a racist. Anybody black who disagrees with the NAACP is pilloried with racial calumny. They're Uncle Tom, or they are a Negro. This is a sign of brain death, because this is and the irony of it all is that the NAACP is accusing the Tea Party of wanting to push America to the past, pre-civil rights era, and that's exactly where the NAACP is stuck. In the past, it does not see, it does not recognize the significant racial progress in this nation.
The president said of the NAACP, he said the following. He said, "We felt that the time had come to stand up and say,
who is that?
It's
Ben Jealous, a nobody."
Right. Okay, well, all right, hang on a second. The time has come to say it's time for the Tea Party to be responsible members of this democracy and make sure that they don't tolerate bigots or bigotry among their members. Now, here's the problem.
Yeah.
If that is the standard, would that standard apply to Barack Obama in this sense, sitting in Jeremiah Wright's church? Would that apply to them? Are they going to condemn the new Black Panther Party for standing in front of a polling place hurling racial epithets at voters?
Better yet, at an NAACP-sponsored press conference, the NAACP had a speaker there who was condemning a black member of the Tea Party as an Uncle Tom.
At this conference?
As a Negro, no, at the press conference in May, as an Uncle Tom, as a Negro, because this black man who is a free market person doesn't agree with them. Yeah. Now, this is the NAACP engaging in racial calumny, and that's why I say the NAACP is not only a hypocrite, it has betrayed its principles as a sane organization. It is brain dead.
All right, let me go back to you, Andrew, here for just a second here. Look, first of all, does it matter that Michelle Obama spoke there? And, you know, I've been watching this new Black Panther Party case. Does it matter? I haven't heard any Democrats talk about the new Black Panther Party standing outside the polling place, Andrew.
Well, obviously this is coordinated with the White House. Michelle Obama would not go somewhere if she didn't want to be in harm's way. So she was drawing attention to this, and it worked. I will say this. Mike Myers, you're an American hero for standing up against this type of stuff. Kenneth Gladney was beaten by the SEIU and called the N-word. One of the people at the NAACP in St. Louis called him an Uncle Tom. He's a black Tea Party guy. They called him an Uncle Tom. And if you want to talk about the state of the NAACP and the Democratic Party right now, on a technicality, Cedra Crenshaw is the Tea Party candidate in Joliet, Illinois, and the Chicago machine took her off of the ballot. They do not want to have a black conservative running because it undermines their desire to in a summer of bad economics, to create division in this country because they're so fearful of what's going to happen in November. Cedric Crenshaw, yes.
Andrew is exactly right. The NAACP is now a political arm of the White House. Al Sharpton and the NAACP people are in the White House so often they already have rooms designated to Ben Jealous and Al Sharpton.
Right, but wait a minute,
everything's coordinated.
I think
including the endorsement of Elaine Kagan.
Either the NAACP proves this, or I think the NAACP should apologize.
They're not going to apologize because all they do is engage in racial rhetoric. They don't understand the nature of forced charges. Anytime they want to stop the conversation, they'll just say, oh, you're a racist, oh, you're Uncle Tom, oh, you are a Negro. Their former executive director, Roy Wilkins, by the way, used to be called an Uncle Tom, used to be called a Negro, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves for doing the same thing they condemned against their own executive director of 22 years when the NAACP was a sane organization. It no longer is.
All right.
The slates that we see in the video, and it reads this. It says, on March 27th, 2010, while speaking at the NAACP Freedom Forum Fund Banquet, Ms. Sherrod admits that in her federally appointed position, overseeing billions of dollars, she discriminates against people due to their race. In the portion of the speech you have online, she does no such thing. She talks about an episode that was in 1986, 23 years before she came to work for the Department of Agriculture. Is there a factual mistake in that posting?
This story is about the NAACP. This story is about the NAACP falsely accusing the Tea Party of being racist. And
well, have you
when we provided exculpatory evidence to show that Congressmen Cleaver, Carson, and Lewis lied about the N-word incident, the mainstream media was not there for us to show our exculpatory evidence that absolutely shows beyond a shadow of a doubt that the three of them lied in order to malign a group of millions.
But what does that have to do with Shirley Sherrod? What does it have to do with Shirley Sherrod?
It has to do with this tape is about the NAACP. Its raison d'etre is about non-discrimination. And when Shirley Sherrod is talking there, in which she expresses a discriminatory attitude towards white people, the audience responds with applause, and the NAACP agrees with me, and it rebuked her and the audience. So the entire conversation about race right now in this country is because the NAACP brought up without evidence again, and including the false narrative that the N-word was hurled at three black congressmen. This is asserting that the NAACP condoned racism and was caught on video. And the more video that we've seen that we haven't even offered, there's even more racism on these tapes. This is deeply problematic.
I'm happy to look at those tapes, and I promise I will look at those tapes if you post them, but I want to come back to another. You say context is everything. We believe facts are important, too. Now, in this case... If
it is the case, and it can be shown to me that the incident that she's talking about was done many years ago and not in her current context. But as a reporter, you tell me how you confirmed that the incident that she's talking about was 24 years ago. You tell me as a reporter how CNN put on a person today who purported to be the farmer's wife. What did you do to find out whether or not that was the actual farmer's wife? I mean, if you're going to accuse me of a falsehood, tell me where you've confirmed that this incident happened 24 years ago. This is Shirley Sherrod trying to save her job when her problem is with Vilsack and the USDA and the NAACP, both which have rebuked her and forced her to leave her position.
I think she...
But that's really not where it is for a lot of people.
The only record I want to see here, the only thing I want to see here is Andrew Breitbart apologize to Shirley Sherrod. That's what I want to see. I mean, this is going to be stopped, and it's going to be stopped by all of us.
Can I answer to that? Can I answer to that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, good. Do you want to hear the truth, or are you going to just use your talking points?
I don't have talking points.
Okay, great.
I have,
in my piece...
Because Republicans never have talking points.
Yeah, really.
In my article, I wrote, eventually her basic humanity informed her to help the white farmer. The media ignored that, okay?
You admitted...
Whoa. Secondly, in the actual video that was there, it said, it had the epiphany where she said, it's not about black versus white, it's about rich versus poor. And the only person who defended me on that was Chris Matthews. Thank you, Chris Matthews. And so what happened is that Glenn Beck threw me under the bus. It happened. And he did it on the radio show, and he cut out the part on his radio show where she said it's not about black versus white, it's about rich versus poor. And he went on television and said Andrew Breitbart needs to apologize. He's the one that cut up the video. People listen to Glenn Beck. They don't read Andrew Breitbart's website.
Is anybody buying this? I mean,
it's
you
true.
yourself told Newsweek that you took Shirley Sherrod out of context.
No, I didn't.
You said it yourself.
It's what I just said is true.
If this wasn't your agenda,
when I said
if you
that
weren't
eventually,
doing this on purpose, why don't you just apologize?
Did I write in?
Why don't you just apologize?
In the meantime, this stunning Fox News alert back now to the Acorn workers caught on undercover videotape telling a supposed prostitute how to hide her occupation on her taxes, classify underage girls who could be working as prostitutes as her dependents, and apparently willing to help arrange an Acorn housing loan for a house that could be used as a brothel. Acorn workers caught on camera saying it all. You can watch it for yourself. We're going to roll the tape for you in a moment. But in the meantime, we are joined by Andrew Breitbart, who is the man behind the posting of this thing online, and who is the person who first got his hands on this videotape. He's going to tell us more about the circumstances of it. Do we have Andrew?
Hi, Megan. How are you?
Andrew, I'm very glad to see you. Just so our viewers know, we're going to show about 2 minutes of this tape during this segment. But first, I just want you to get it to set it up for us. What is the, to the extent you can tell us, how'd you get your hands on this? How did we find out about this? And what exactly do we believe is happening on the tapes? And then we'll watch them.
Well, James O'Keefe is a 25-year-old independent filmmaker. The best I can describe him is he's a cross between Morley Safer and Sacha Baron Cohen. And he came to me with this video, and this extraordinary video, where he played the role of a pimp with a prostitute and went to the Baltimore Acorn office to try and get help in getting housing to run a brothel for underage El Salvadoran prostitutes ranging in age from 13 to 15.
Now, he's expecting that when he walks in there, he's probably going to get bounced out on his ear. He's telling them. I mean, he's not keeping it a secret what he's allegedly looking to do. I mean, he's telling them flat out. I've read the transcripts. I've got more than a dozen girls coming in from El Salvador. They're underaged. How do I take care of them tax-wise, and how do I get my business classified in a way where I can get a home loan is what he's asking, I guess.
At every step of the way, he telegraphs that what he's doing, he steps up the level of illegality. It's pretty extraordinary to watch the video. It's at biggovernment.com, which we launched today. It's extraordinary to see how every step of the way he says that he's a pimp, she's a prostitute, she's doing all these tricks, they need housing, they've been discriminated against by banks that they've tried to get loans, and they're now coming to Acorn to get help. And every step of the way, they're telling them how to evade the law.
All right, let's take a look at part of the clips. The clips run for several minutes. And as Andrew points out, you can check them all out on his new website, biggovernment.com. Right now, we'll show you just a bit, and then we'll get Andrew to comment on it.
Is it against the law in Maryland? Prostitution?
Anything that the government's not getting money from is always against the law.
But I want to know specifically if this is, I think, of course it is, because they've always called the law cops on us before.
Right, and anything that's, anything that's in Maryland, anything that's not government approved is always against the law.
Let me make sure there's a code for it, okay?
A code for prostitution?
Okay, let's see what we got here. Combination food service and drinking places. Business selling food, departments, service, correction agencies, credit bureaus. You might have to name it something else. Performance arts, let's see. Independent artists. You can be that.
You're an artist of sorts, the way you move your body.
I'm very independent. Well, I am now that Sonny's gone.
Yeah.
Dancing.
It's not dancing, trust me.
But dancing is considered an art. I mean,
sex is kind of like dancing, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. So yeah. I'm thinking, like, if you worked in, like, what's that place? What's the name of that dancing? Anyway, you work in them, they usually go under performing arts. Or, they usually go under performing arts. which is what will be what you are, performing artist. $8,996 for the year, $9,600 for the year. You have to have a certain clothing. Okay, so we can write that off. You have to have a certain grooming. Okay, that can be written off. Do you get like little gifts or like some kind of incentive or something to your clients or whatever? You can write stuff like that.
Condoms. I mean, how many condoms did you buy last month?
No. You don't travel.
They travel to her.
Yeah. So you don't go nowhere, right? Okay. So yeah, we could probably write off. You made $9,000. We can write off at probably at least $8,000.
This is in an Acorn office, and by the way, is that a toddler I hear in the background?
You hear children, or at least a single child, but I couldn't make out how many children there were in the background.
So, but this is inside the Baltimore Acorn offices, Andrew?
This is the housing division. This is not the voting division.
Right.
But it is the Baltimore housing office for Acorn.
So does this, now Acorn spokesman, Scott Levinson, who may be very familiar to our viewers, has come out and said, oh, they tried this stunt elsewhere and they got thrown out, and I want to see the whole tape before Acorn comments. Right there, we're playing your edited version of part of the tape. Those are your captions that you put up there. You know, he seems to be suggesting that you've misled, that you've sliced and diced in a way that would mislead people as to the nature of the exchange. Your response to it?
Well, in the spirit of transparency, we have provided, when James came to me and I saw his edited version, I said in order for us to put this up at biggovernment.com when we launch, we were going to provide to the public a full airing of the audio from the beginning, middle, and end, and a full transcript at biggovernment.com. So you will hear everything, including the long pauses in between people coming in and out of the office to help them out, which is extraordinary because you never see anyone bat an eye. When he mentions that they're as young as 13 years old, you don't see a flinch. They seem excited to actually help to be able to establish this business and to try and turn this business into a legitimate business. They know it's a prostitution ring, but they're trying to see how they can figure out how to turn it into a legitimate business so that they can use potentially government property in order to run a prostitution ring with El Salvadoran underage girls.
Because this is...
All right, the Acorn scandal continues to widen tonight. In fact, it now spans all the way to the West Coast. Now, over the past few days, you have seen videos of Acorn officials offering to help set up underage prostitution rings in Baltimore, Washington, and New York. But tonight, we take you to San Bernardino, California, where the most shocking undercover footage was captured to date. Now, the investigation in California began like all of the others. Let's take a look.
This has to do with my girlfriend's unique line of work.
Oh, okay. What is it? Is it stripping? No, it's not. Is it exotic dancing? No. It's prostitution. Oh, okay. Yeah, is that okay? It's okay with me. Okay. I think it should be totally legalized.
And it didn't take long to find out why this Acorn official was so understanding. Just listen to this.
A long time ago, myself, although I don't think Acorn knows it, not that I care whether they do or don't, what we call escorts, and I ran a service. Really? Yeah. Well, Heidi Price is my hero.
And if things couldn't get any worse for Acorn, the official who has already admitted to running a call girl service is now about to reveal her own involvement in a much more serious crime. Let's take a look at this.
I, in my life, have been abused also. Just with an ex-husband, that just beat the hell out of me, a few times, and then, I killed him.
How old are you then?
It was only actually about, I was 35.
Was he abusing you when you shot him, or
No, not right that instant. He came at me, and I let him throw me around a little bit. you know, and then I just picked up the gun and said, you, and I shot him, and he died right there.
And back with us tonight from BigGovernment.com is Andrew Breitbart and Hannah Giles, who played the prostitute in that video, only 20 years old. So you say, I'm a prostitute. Oh, okay.
Yeah, completely accepting.
All right, and then she admits she herself was an escort.
Yeah. And not only was she an escort, but she ran the service, the escort girls service.
Yeah. All right. There are three things that really strike me in this video tonight. The first is that she admits, you very specifically say underage girls that you are going to bring in from other countries. And she's like, oh, she's totally fine with that.
Yeah.
And you basically say you want to take them from this pimp or this other guy, and that you want them to work for you, the underage girls.
Yeah.
Walk us through that and what she says.
Not only did we explain that we were going to bring in underage girls from El Salvador to run, to live in the house and run a brothel and, you know, make money off of them, but we also explained to her that if they were abused, physically abused, like punched, kicked, we would get more money off of them, and so that was going to be going on in the house also. And she began to explain that, oh, well, you know, you can bring it to the level of decency or indecency that you want. So she was fine with child abuse, using the girls', you know, bodies to fund James's political campaign.
Andrew, 4 cities in a row. Now this is a group that is on par now to get what, 8.5 billion in stimulus funds.
Well, it's not just a case of vetting, those that weren't vetted by the press before the election, as in individuals like Van Jones. It's about actually looking at a group like Acorn, which is set to get so much more money than it ever has historically and be granted so much power. And the amount of email that is coming into big government right now, I don't think we're going to have to hire 200 people to deal with the tentacles of Acorn and how it goes into our government, how it is currently working in ways that don't even appear legal, you know, at first glance.
When you put it all together, and it's all 4 cities, and by the way, there's another one tomorrow night.
It's California also. I mean, if you look last week, it was Baltimore, Washington, and then New York. I mean, they've gone across the country here.
Why did you decide to release it this way, you know, a day at a time?
I think that's an important question. When the Van Jones story came out, well, we all know that the media, to call it bias at this point, there has to be a stronger word. It's duplicity.
Journalism's dead.
Look, I think this is the perfect exposure of the Democrat media complex. It's not bias. It just happens to be a group of people who have a common interest. Fine. Well, now there's an alternative to it. The reason why was when they came to me to tell me about this thing, I said, if you were to drop this, if you were to go to ABC, if you were to CBS or NBC, they'd laugh you out of the place. And I suggested to them, maybe you should put the camera, you know, and pitch them the story and put that up on the internet,
That would be worth it, too.
Yeah, I don't.
Chic. Andrew Breitbart, I'm quoting you, in a newspaper interview he gave last year discussing the people who run Hollywood. Quote.
Uh-oh.
Yes, quote. I'm telling you, they're uninteresting, they're vicious, they're vitriolic, they're really, really not good people, and I'm willing to say that on the record, close quote. Is there any of that you regret?
No.
What makes them really, really not good people?
Well, I'm not saying the entirety, but the ones who have controlled Hollywood for the last 40 years, that quote could be attributed to the campus left as well. It could be attributed to people who are in charge in Venezuela right now. Anywhere where the left gets control, you start to see political correctness run amok. You start seeing dissenting views quashed. They use projection. Right before they do so, they start attacking the people that they're about to go after of being guilty of the very things that they do. That's why the dissent is patriotic meme was so hysterical during the during Bush's presidency, because whenever I would ask any of these people, can you name one person who has attempted to quash your dissent? And they would usually say...
The liberals.
The liberals would say that. They couldn't come up with any individuals. They'd just say, you've got to be crazy, it's everywhere. Well, exactly where is that? The first thing
that this president did,
Obama,
that the President Obama did, was isolate Rush Limbaugh, who was a symbol of a coalescing anti-Obama sentiment, and he isolated him, and the mainstream media and Hollywood, completely got behind this. That to me was chilling. That the Bill Maher's of the world, the Joy Behar's of the world, the entirety of MSNBC, all went after Rush Limbaugh. He hadn't said anything at that moment in time that was anything that was outrageous at all, especially compared to what had been said for the 8 previous years.
He was guilty
Bush.
only of a political crime. He disagreed with them and said so vividly.
Right.
And that was it. Listen, historical question. Golden age of Hollywood, which it wasn't all that long ago. We measure it in decades, not centuries after all. Producers, Jack Warner of Warner Brothers was a Republican. Directors, Frank Capra, immigrant from Sicily, a Republican and a conservative. He produces movies such as It's a Wonderful Life, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. The town in those days produced movie after movie after movie that was fundamentally affirming about American life, fundamentally affectionate even about American life. How did Hollywood go from Republican David Selznick, who produced Gone with the Wind, to liberal David Geffen? What happened?
Well, 2 things. The studio system ended, and now the celebrities are in charge.
Okay, explain both of those. Studio system ended. What bearing did that have on the politics?
Well, there were people. Actors have always been held in low regard by society, and the businessmen who ran the studios, cleaned up after their messes around town. I mean, that's sort of the L.A. Confidential movie. That changed in the 1960s to a great extent. But I would attribute the majority of this to the Cultural Revolution in the late 1960s, and that at the end part of John Wayne's career, he no longer had the swagger. He was 60-something years old. The movies were no longer original. They were doing the same hackneyed thing over and over and over.
Right.
And simultaneously, there's a youth revolution going on in the country. And while the left was never able to take over the White House, while George McGovern was not able to be victorious, Hollywood was taken over by the left, and they've never relinquished it. And in fact, I would argue that the right has abdicated its place in Hollywood because they were told that you're not wanted here anymore, and they never fought for it. So I don't know who I have more contempt for, the left for its totalitarian behavior towards those that disagree with them, or the right, the conservative movement, for just allowing for it to happen and not to fight back.
Welcome to a special edition of Red Eye. I'm Greg Gutfeld, and for the next hour, we pay tribute to a man who's been on the show more times than I can remember, including our first 2 shows, and boy, were they horrible. Andrew Breitbart, the media publisher, best-selling author, and activist, died of natural causes in Los Angeles early Thursday. He was a wonderful, glorious maniac, and I still think that this might be a hoax. I do. I really do. He was just 43. To me, though, it's like a fiery planet going dark. His last wish for Red Eye, I hear, was not to have Pinch at the table, so we had the newspaper removed. Let's welcome our remaining guests. I'm here tonight with Kurt Loder, Reason Magazine and Reason.com contributor, Ann Coulter, political commentator, columnist, and author. TV's Andy Levy. He still wanted that title, even during this solemn occasion. Bill Schultz, who will not be my repulsive sidekick today. And sitting right next to me is Michigan Congressman Thaddeus McCotter, who should have been our next presidential nominee, but he failed. No, just kidding. And I go to you first because I think I wouldn't have met you if it wasn't for Andrew Breitbart. I think he introduced you to me, trying to convince you to do this show. By the way, this show would not exist without Breitbart. It was him who talked to Fox to get this show, or to get me a job. I was living in England, and he talked to people at Fox. I met with people at Fox. The next thing you know, it was Red Eye. And everybody here that's sitting here, with the exception of Bill, because I knew Bill, we never would have met. We never would have met if it wasn't for Andrew Breitbart bringing us together, because that's what Breitbart does or did and probably still will somewhere, wherever he is, talking to somebody on his cell phone constantly.
Yes, and your introduction reminds me that not only would Red Eye not exist, but Acorn would exist, and Representative Anthony Weiner would exist. I've been amazed today listening to how many people knew Breitbart and have talked to him in the past 24 hours.
Yes.
Man, he had a lot of friends, and he told me so much about you before I met you. He was following you on Huffington Post, and there was one in particular that he demanded that I go and look up, which, sorry, I didn't. But it was about an ice cream truck.
Right.
And he said, you know, there are all these ponderous left-wingers posting on the Huffington Post. And this guy, I've never even heard of him before, and he has this long piece on an ice cream truck. And he was like that with a lot of people. He never claimed credit for himself, although you look back and you see that he was the glue or the instigator for so many right-wing things, for Friends of Abe, for Red Eye, for the Huffington Post of all things. He helped Drudge when Drudge was starting up the Drudge Report, and back when I first met him, back in around 96, 97, for the James O'Keefe doing those Acorn videos. And he never claimed credit for himself. He was always promoting, especially fantastic talents like you, Greg Gutfeld.
And he, you know what, you mentioned this one thing. He had no problems being behind the scenes. He did a lot of work for a lot of very famous people who took that work and did well with it, and Andrew didn't get a lot of credit for it. I want to show real quick before I come to you, Andy. You know, if it wasn't for Breitbart, we wouldn't have Red Eye. We wouldn't have met each other. He was, therefore, obviously, one of our first guests. He was the first guest. Here's a clip.
What I don't know what else to say about Neil Cavuto.
Well, what I want to say is about you. And you said that you're not going to have a lot of viewers, but I think that you represent a lot of viewers like myself who have no discernible expertise on anything, and I think that people will relate to you on that.
Okay, so I look like a raving drunk. He looks like the bass player of a Swedish rock band. But he's got the long hair. He hasn't. They haven't gotten famous yet, so he hasn't lost the weight.
He needed a lute.
But he was. He really was. He did need a lute.
Yeah.
I said that to him once on the show. I think in halftime, I said, you know, he looked like a wandering minstrel.
Yes.
He should have been talking in verse.
Yeah, he should. He should. Yeah, he'd be dancing along like this, like this.
Exactly.
Yeah. But you know what? That was the interesting thing about Breitbart, is that there wasn't anything like him in the conservative movement. I always look at him as kind of an evolutionary step from the Merry Pranksters, making change and almost creating or publishing events through action.
Los Angeles, who wears goofy shoes. We knew that you couldn't balance budgets by spending trillions of dollars on ungodly crap.
They always think that their sarcasm is going to like catch me off guard.
They're a bunch of totalitarian freaks. It worked.
Okay. What do you say? What do you? I'm asking you.
You're a
I'm
coward.
asking you. I'm asking you.
In college, I read a lot of post-structuralist Marxist gobbledygook. Thank God I was drunk and it didn't take. I'm looking for you, you Occupy freaks with your glitter bombs. Bring it on. Bring on the glitter. Everything has changed in the last few years. Conservatives used to take it, and we're not taking it anymore. We have an obligation to fight back.
The media says Breitbart lies, Breitbart lies, Breitbart lies, Breitbart lies. Give me one example of a provable lie. One.
I'm from Los Angeles. I've never claimed to be that deep. I kind of would describe myself as Holly Golightly with a gut. There are two paths. One is America, and the other one is Occupy. One is America, the other one is Occupy.
Andrew Breitbart died this morning. He was 43. He was a publisher, an activist, and a commentator. But that says almost nothing about this force of nature. First, he was a warrior, perhaps the most jovial warrior I've ever seen. He was the least angry guy I've ever met. And although he embraced the battle for conservative principles, he did it with joy and with humor. Every action, opinion, or motive came from a place of love. He loved his wonderful life, he loved his friends, he loved his crazy life, and he loved America. Everything he did because he thought it was right. For those who didn't know him, man, you missed out. Even those who disliked his ideas within 5 minutes of meeting him loved him. He was a big kid who treated his opponents like humans. It was never about people. It was always, always about principles. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Andrew Breitbart. I met him when he ran the Huffington Post, and we bonded instantly. We shared the same humor, the same music, and the same refusal to take most things seriously. We played the fool proudly. He was the one who told Fox News about me, so you can blame Andrew for me being here today. But more important, he was the spiritual leader of the modern conservative movement, and today we lost our toughest general. His biggest contribution to make it okay to call BS, to push back on received wisdom. He was a rebel who took on enormous forces for he believed they were sapping our freedoms. What guts this guy had. And he grew comfortable in a role that electrified people, and there's no telling where he might have taken it. The left has their Andrew Breitbarts, but the right never had such a thing until Andrew came along. That's the true test of a visionary, someone who reminds us of nobody else. So is it rude to wonder who can replace him? Because we need more Breitbarts. This country needs them. I know it's not me. I'm not brave enough. Even I'm out here swinging, but I don't have Breitbart guts. So our biggest tribute to him is to continue his fight, but adopting his fearless manner with love, with wit, and with joy. He inspired more people than he will ever know, and it's now our turn to return the favor. And if I can be selfish for a moment, he was also a great, great drinking buddy, unbelievably smart, mischievous, a partner in crime, and hilariously funny. Andrew, thanks for everything you did for me and for us.